Did you know that the word used for Noah's Ark in the Bible is the same word used for the basket that carried baby Moses? This little-known detail is incredibly powerful and brings a whole new layer of meaning to these two iconic stories. The word in Hebrew is teva, and it's used in only two places in the entire Bible, the story of Noah and the story of Moses. Today, we're going to explore what this connection means, why it's so significant, and what it can teach us about God's protection, purpose, and timing in our own lives. First, let's start with Noah. We all know the basic story. God commanded Noah to build an ark to save himself, his family, and pairs of animals from a massive flood that would cover the earth. But have you ever stopped to think about just how monumental that task was? This wasn't just a little boat. The ark was huge, and Noah wasn't a shipbuilder by trade. It took him years to build, and the Bible even tells us that the people around him thought he was crazy. Imagine spending years of your life working on something because you believe God told you to, and everyone around you is mocking you for it. That takes an incredible amount of faith. The ark itself was a massive structure, designed to withstand the chaos of the flood. But it wasn't just a physical boat, it was a symbol. The ark represented God's protection, his promise of salvation in the midst of destruction. It was a sanctuary, a place of refuge from the storm. In the same way, God offers us protection and refuge in the storms of our own lives. But like Noah, we have to trust him, even when it doesn't make sense, even when the world around us is telling us we're crazy. Now, let's fast forward to the story of Moses. Moses was born into a very different kind of storm. The Israelites were slaves in Egypt, and Pharaoh had decreed that all male Hebrew babies were to be killed. Can you imagine the fear and desperation that Moses' mother, Jochebed, must have felt? She knew that if she kept her baby, he would be killed. So, in a desperate act of faith, she made a basket, placed her baby inside, and set him afloat on the Nile River. But here's where it gets really interesting. The Bible doesn't just call this a basket. It uses the word teva, the same word used for Noah's Ark. Think about that for a moment. The same word that describes the massive ark that saved Noah's family and the animals from the flood is used to describe the tiny basket that carried baby Moses. Why is that? What's the connection? In both cases, the teva serves the same purpose. It's a vessel of salvation. Just as Noah's ark protected him and his family from the floodwaters, Moses' basket, or ark, protected him from the deadly waters of the Nile. And in both stories, God uses water as both a threat and a means of salvation. The floodwaters that destroyed the earth also carried Noah to safety. The Nile, which could have drowned Moses, carried him to Pharaoh's daughter, who would raise him in the palace. This connection isn't just a random detail. It's a reminder that God is in control of the waters in our lives, both the literal waters and the metaphorical ones. Whether it's a flood, a river, or the challenges and uncertainties we face, God is always in control. He uses the waters to protect us, to shape us, and to carry us toward his purpose. But what's even more intriguing is the deeper symbolism behind this word. The teva wasn't just about survival, it was about transformation. For Noah, the flood marked the end of one era and the beginning of another. When he and his family emerged from the ark, they entered a world that had been cleansed and renewed. It was a fresh start and new beginning. For Moses, the basket marked the beginning of a journey that would ultimately lead to the liberation of his people. He would grow up in Pharaoh's palace, but eventually, he would return to lead the Israelites out of slavery. Both Noah and Moses were transformed through their experiences with the teva. They were given new purposes, new missions, and new lives on the other side of the waters. And isn't that true for all of us? We all face times when we feel like we're adrift, uncertain of where life is taking us. We all experience storms that threaten to overwhelm us. But the story of the teva reminds us that God is always at work, even in the midst of the storm. He is guiding us, shaping us, and carrying us toward his purpose. Let's take a moment to reflect on what this means for us today. Have you ever experienced a time in your life when you felt like you were in a storm? Maybe you were facing a difficult situation, financial struggles, health issues, relationship problems, and you didn't know how you were going to make it through. Maybe you felt like you were adrift, with no clear direction or purpose. But looking back, can you see how God was at work during that time? Can you see how He was guiding you, even when you didn't realize it? In both Noah's and Moses' stories, the Teva wasn't just about survival. It was about God's purpose. The flood and the Nile weren't just random events. They were part of God's plan to bring about something greater. Noah's family was saved so they could repopulate the earth and start a new chapter in human history. Moses was saved so he could lead the Israelites out of slavery and into the Promised Land. In the same way, the storms we face in our own lives aren't just random challenges. They are part of God's plan to shape us, to prepare us for the next chapter in our lives. And just as God used the Teva to protect and guide Noah and Moses, He uses His presence and His promises to protect and guide us. Now let's think about the broader biblical narrative. The Teva connects Noah and Moses, two of the most important figures in the Bible. But it also points to something even greater. The story of the Teva is ultimately a story of salvation, a story that points forward to the ultimate act of salvation in the New Testament. Just as the Teva saved Noah and Moses, Jesus came to save all of humanity. And just as the Teva carried Noah and Moses through the waters, Jesus carries us through the waters of sin, death, and separation from God. The word Teva might only appear twice in the Bible, but its significance is profound. It's a symbol of God's protection, His purpose, and His salvation. It's a reminder that no matter how big the storm, no matter how deep the waters, God is always in control. He is always with us, guiding us toward His purpose. So, what can we take away from all of this? First, we can trust that God is in control, even in the midst of the storm. Whether we're facing literal waters or metaphorical ones, we can trust that God is guiding us and protecting us. Second, we can remember that the storms we face are not just random challenges. They are opportunities for growth, transformation, and purpose. Just as Noah and Moses were transformed through their experiences with the Teva, we too are being shaped and prepared for the next chapter in our lives. Finally, we can hold on to the promise of salvation. Just as the Teva saved Noah and Moses, Jesus came to save us. And just as the Teva carried them through the waters, Jesus carries us through the waters of life. No matter what we're facing, we can trust that God is with us, guiding us toward His purpose. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey through the Bible's hidden connections. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who could use a little hope today. And as always, leave a comment below with your thoughts or questions. I'd love to hear how you see these stories playing out in your own life. Until next time, take care, and remember, God's Teva is always with you, guiding you through the storms.